We're joined now from LA by renowned surrogacy expert, Dr. Jeffrey Steinberg, and here in the studio, surrogacy advocate, Lisa Banfield. Good morning to you both. Let's start with you, Lisa. You now have 7-year-old twin boys after you needed to use a surrogate in America.
Correct.
So why did you need the surrogate? And tell us a bit about your story.
Sure. Approximately 15 years, well actually nearly 15 years to the day, I found out due to the incompetence of my gynaecologist that I was under the care of, I required radical surgery because I had developed cancer. It was the type of cancer that meant I could never ever carry a child. I still had the genetic material, I still was able to contribute to the genetics of a child, but I lost the ability to carry. And adoption, we found out, was a long-winded episode or a long-winded journey. Fostering was a short-term remedy, and because my husband and I had the genetic material, all we really needed was somebody to carry it for us. My family and friends tried through a non-commercial arrangement. That failed, and we found out that with an extensive history of success in the States, commercial surrogacy worked well in America and has been so for 32 years. And so we gave that option a go.
And so it was your fertilised ovum that was implanted into another woman, is
Correct.
that right?
Our genetic material, my husband John and my eggs were implanted into another woman who was matched with us through an American surrogacy arrangement.
Gotcha. You fought the Australian government 9 years ago who were attempting to ban you from taking your eggs overseas, essentially, and you successfully had that overturned. But these new laws would see you unable to do that, would repeal that old law, yeah?
It's medieval, it's ludicrous. Politicians from the last Labor government put this law in place. It's banned any New South Wales couple of being able to do what we did, John and I, take our own genetic material overseas with a win-win relationship with a consenting adult and effectively fulfill our dream of becoming parents.
Is it only in situations where you are seeking to pay someone to do it that the ban applies? I mean, if someone wants to do it for free overseas, you know, just out of the goodness of their heart, that's not banned, is it?
That's not banned, but where are you going to find that? Someone going to fall out of a tree and do that for you? You can do that in Australia, but you've got to get a government approval to do it in Australia. That's called altruistic or non-commercial surrogacy.
Yes, okay.
For peace of mind, go to an experienced setup. This is what they do in America. They do it well. They've done it for 32 years. They screen the surrogate chooses you. You can choose to have an ongoing, loving relationship with that surrogate. Our boys know who Chrissy, our surrogate, is. They know Mum had cancer because a doctor mucked her up. They know without Chrissy, they wouldn't be in this loving family.
Sure.
Dr. Steinberg, let's bring you in. You've got 34 years experience. It is a contentious issue, surrogacy. What are some of the risks of commercial surrogacy arrangements?
Well, the risks are generally very limited, depending upon, of course, which country you're going to. We all have laws in place intended to protect all involved. And again, while I think legislators are largely well-intentioned, in Australia they have sorely missed the mark on the restrictions that they've put in place. They've taken fine women and men interested in having children of their own and essentially criminalized them. Right. So what happens is we've recognized the fact that there's potentials for problems with surrogacy, and in centers like our own, we bring everything in-house. We have the surrogates available, we have the attorneys, a team of attorneys dealing with different laws and international laws. We try to do everything just right and minimize the risks, which are really almost non-existent at this point.
Look, you do have a very well set up arrangement in America. However, places like India that are just starting with these arrangements. I travelled to India with a family who had a surrogate over there and now have twins. It's a little more difficult over there. The issue of the women being exploited is an issue. You don't have quite as much control, and it's certainly not legislated in those countries in the same way that it is in America. Would you agree with that, Doctor?
Yes, I would agree with that. And again, you know, if legislators are looking for something to do, let them look at situations such as those that you've just described. Look at India, look at places where there are problems, and perhaps prohibit it there or put some regulations in there. But to do a serial ban on all efforts in all parts of the world takes, again, some of your finest citizens and criminalizes them.
But then that, I suppose, it makes it incumbent upon governments to come up with some kind of international standard then, doesn't it? Some kind of, you know, surrogacy treaty.
Why is it the government's business?
Well, it's the government's business how people's bodies are used in all sorts of different ways.
Well,
you know, you can't force someone into child labour, street prostitution in most places is banned. You know, these are controls over our bodies.
Correct, but consenting adults participate in a surrogacy arrangement. Psychologists on both sides screen people. Consenting adults.
But would you be happy knowing that someone from Australia could go to a place like India and implant their genetic material in a woman who has been forced to be a surrogate by her local village chief because he's got a row of...
Where's the proof that people have been forced?
No,
I think research
I'm not
needs
saying
to
that,
be
but
done.
I'm saying there needs to be a standard to prevent that from happening.
Correct. Research needs to be done instead of a blanket law by a politician late at night at 11 p.m. Linda Burney just decided because of her own personal issues that she was going to put this ban in place. Surrogacy is the last port of call for people desperate to become parents. It's not the first thing they choose to do. Why demonise? Why make these people who are desperate to be parents suffer more? This is their last. They don't do this willingly.
And you're absolutely right. It is such a complicated issue. A blanket ban is the problem in so many cases, as is yours. It was between consenting adults.
And it has been for years.
There are many
I think as long as that's the case, you know.
As long as that's the case, that's fine.
No problem.
I would agree entirely with all of this, and I think what's going to happen is, unless Australia wises up at the legislative level, this will go down as one of the greatest boondoggles of Australian legislation of all time.
There have been a fair few boondoggles in Australian legislation.
And there needs to be a politician who will spearhead this, because it's not a vote taker, but it affects a very vulnerable, emotional group of people in Australia.
And it's certainly kicking along, and it's actually being pushed underground now. Unfortunately, we are out of time.
Sure.
Lisa, thank you so much for your time, and Doctor in LA, Dr. Steinberg, thank you so much.